All right, Randall Hughes with GodGlorified.com, and we're commenting on today's reading for September the 23rd. And I might just mention that today is part of the feast of Rosh Hashanah, the Feast of the Trumpet. And there are many that believe that Jesus could be coming back today, and so the rapture could be taking place. God is the only one who truly knows that, and he says no man knows the day nor the hour, and so there are those that have projected that, and yet it says no man knows the day or the hour, but think about this world. There's over 8 billion people. The mass of that, over 6 billion of them probably, are not Christian and know nothing about Jesus. So it certainly would be taking 6 billion people by surprise like a thief in the night. And of the 2 billion that are Christian, there's different levels of fervency and commitment and whatever preparations being made by all of them. And so there would be some that would be taken by surprise as well. And so at the end of the day, I'm not saying that somebody couldn't be declaring this is when Jesus is coming, because otherwise, I mean, people, there's enough different opinions and ideas that there's probably somebody somewhere that almost could say Jesus is coming on any one given day. And it certainly seems likely that he could come on one of the feasts, such as the Feast of the Trumpets. And this year is certainly, there's a lot of things stacking up that point to the possibility of the tribulation beginning. And so if it's a pre-tribulation rapture, it certainly would have to take place before that. And it looks like we're getting very close to a covenant being made, as many nations are clamoring for. And the United Nations, a large percentage of the voting members of the United Nations are supporting a two-state solution. And so, at any rate, some of the things. And so when it says all the nations will be gathered, and that was at the start of chapter 12, some of the things that in our reading today, some of that may be taking place when the United Nations is voting against Israel. And yet I believe they will be in siege against them as well, or their representatives certainly. And so Zechariah chapter 9, rejoice so greatly, O daughter of Zion, shout, thy king cometh. Many, many messianic prophecies in here. I don't know if I'll even catch all of them for you, but I'll try to point some of them out. He is just, having salvation, lowly, and riding upon a donkey, and upon the colt, the foal of a donkey. There's one other place that those words are used in the Old Testament, and it's in Genesis chapter 49, where Jacob is blessing his children, and he's part of the blessing that's given to Judah. I believe it deals with this colt, and so this ties in. The only other place, and then of course in the New Testament, it is mentioned again when it happens, when Jesus rides in on the triumphal entry. And so he says, at the end of that, how good and the beauty of the God's goodness, great in beauty, at the end of that chapter. And then he's going to give the latter rain once again, and it's going through some of this. Was talking about the king of Greece in chapter 9. That would be Alexander the Great. Chapter 11, again, prophetic messianic prophecy, the 30 pieces of silver. And then the potter's field is referenced more or less by the house of the potter, and cast it in the potter's house, cast them to the potter in the house of Yahweh. So things that, because we know what took place with Jesus' trial and with Judas and the aftermath of Jesus' death, those verses suddenly have messianic implications. And then chapter 12, verse 10 is an amazing passage, and I've done this verse standalone and explained. If you follow all the Yahwehs in this chapter, you'll find when you get to verse 10 that, and it starts out with Yahweh speaking, I will pour upon the house of David. And then he says, they shall look upon me, whom they have pierced. To me, this is a tremendous oneness passage that's telling us that Jesus Christ was Yahweh manifest in the flesh. Amazing. And John quotes this in the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 7. And so anyway, some incredible truths right there. And some of those, like I said, this was proclaimed somewhere around the time of maybe 494 BC, according to Reese. So over almost 500 years before it took place. Amazing, incredible things. And the fountain opened in the house of David. Everlasting life, Jesus proclaimed in John 7:37 to 39. And then what about the wounds in thy hand? Wounded in the house of the friend. Some of these correlate to some of the Psalm 22 prophecies and certainly what took place with Jesus Christ messianically. And so some amazing truths. Once again, and some of these things that will take place at Armageddon in chapter 14 of Zechariah, with all the nations gathered. And then living water will come forth out of Jerusalem. Also, then we still to come to pass will be we believe Jesus Christ will come back and stand on that mountain that day, the Mount of Olives, and fight for Israel, and the mountain shall cleave in half. And so certainly things that are I believe, very close to being fulfilled. They could be if not, probably within 7 years, maybe less, who knows. At least we could be within 7 years. That might be the minimum. At any rate, some incredible things there and truths. And in that Yahweh shall be king over all the earth. In that day there shall be one Yahweh, and his name one. God is declared to be one over more than 120 times. I believe I could point to passages of scripture that would declare that in the Old and New combination, 120 verses. Some of them do not use the word one. Some use things like alone, by myself, none else, who was with me, things like that. And so, amazing, the one God. And it shall come to pass that the nation shall come to Jerusalem every year to worship the King, Yahweh of hosts. This is to worship Jesus. They're going to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And whether this is during the millennial reign, which is what many feel, or if this is in the period after the millennial reign. One way or another, we don't know, but they will be worshiping the King of Kings, and that will be Jesus Christ. And so some amazing truths, and that's going to conclude our comments for today. I want to be a part of whatever he's doing. Isaiah prophesied about the increase of his government and peace. There shall be no end. I don't know what all that means, but I pray, God, let me be a part of the increase of your government and peace. Work in my heart, whatever needs to happen in me so that I am what you want me to be, God. I'm just wanting to walk humbly with you and to fulfill your will and purpose in my life. And I pray that that is your prayer as well. God bless you.